Today I'm going to talk about the workforce transformation and changing arts production at Hereke Factory. So this study focuses on Hereke Imperial Factory, Fabrika, from 1819 to 1922. So is started as broadcloth plant founded by local entrepreneur Johannes Dadyan in 1842.
Is there a problem with screen sharing?
I think so. It was gone now. Okay. It was transformed into an imperial factory in 1845 and then producing textiles and carpets for both local and international markets. Became a major hallmark of series of modernization projects being implemented in the late Ottoman Empire. So this tranquil environment is actually a factory campus, a self-sustained habitat. So the plant had its own school, mosque, bathhouse, communal vegetable gardens, vineyard and shops, even cemeteries. So the wage earning workers at the factory, mostly children, but some single adults, dwelt in high density, multi-story cellular dormitories. The workers' profile was composed of the Orthodox Greek, Armenian and Muslim orphans and other children who were conscripted into service at the factory. The number of female workers at factory reached 1,800 in 1906. However, this number was reduced to 200 in 1918. In 1910, just before the war, the number of Orthodox Greeks girls was 2,400, whereas the number of Turkish girls were only 200, who were put on the looms by the Women Association of the Customer of Domestic Products, which is Mamulat-ı Dahiliye İslahi Kadınlar Cemiyeti. According to Hayri Tokay's documents, which is, by Ethem Eldam individual collection, in 1918, a clerk, 2 female teachers, and only 120 female workers were working in the carpet workshop operated by an official of the factory. There were 68 carpet looms for the weaving of silk and woolen carpets and prayer rugs. So both female and male Turkish workers mostly came from Tavşancıl, which was 6 kilometers west of Hereke. The Orthodox Greek girls were mostly from beyond the İzmir Gulf, from South Marmara, we can tell, Koru, Çınarcık, Kadıköy, and the villages of Yalova, such as Hacı Ahmet and Safran. Coming from the villages around the Gulf of İzmit, the girls arrive at the factory by boat and train. In the pre-war years, although the state never labeled the school at the Hereke Factory campus as an industrial school or trade school, Sanayi Mektebi, the factory, for all intents and purposes, acted as one. Instead, the term Home for Manufacturing and Arts, Darus Sana, was used to differentiate its status within the comprehensive organization context of teaching. The students of poor houses vocational orphanages were sent to Hereke Imperial Factory for training. After they got trained, they were sent back to their schools. The trainees of Hereke Imperial Factory also worked in the poorhouses and vocational orphanages in high position. Many exhibitions held in poorhouses and vocational orphanages under the leadership of Hereke Imperial Factory. The artistic work in the drawing office assumed a scientific character. They studied and designed their decorations according to research, and they did with the illustrated books. Here we are seeing botanical illustrations and the pattern on drapery produced from the illustrations. Again, similar to the floral patterns, Hereke Imperial Factory artists also created ornithological illustrations. Books with ornithological illustrations in hand-colored lithographic plates inspired the artists while they were decorating the carpets with natural elements. Again, the image on the right depicts the bird figure on the carpet, whereas the others are the illustrations found in the Hereke Factory library. The factory concentrated on provisions for military since Balkan Wars. In the last years of the 19th century, the Hereke Factory was administered by Imperial Treasury, while other factories such as İzmir Cloth Factory, İpes Factory, Bakırköy Print Works were under control of Seraskeriyer, Ministry of War. Indeed, Hereke Imperial Factory became a subsidiary factory under the directorship of military regime during the war years, like other imperial factories such as Fesane and İzmit Factory. By 1915, these subsidiary factories produced the half of the required provisions for military, like coarse of wool, aba, serge, shayak. So as has been shown, the factory has concentrated on provisions for military since 1912, when an intensified military campaign was seen. However, we know the factory was taken over by the British powers soon after World War I during the tourist period, and with the later support of Indian troops and Greek army. When the British and Greek armies took over the factory became a headquarters, and they used the school as barracks. The extrusion on the roof was used as an observation by armies. The first military division commandership, 1. Fırka Komutanlığı, was developed in İzmit after British regular army troops were sent in December 1918 and started to work on February 1919. But even on July 1919, there were still Ottoman battalions at the Hereke station. The actual deployment of British army with the later support of Greek army in the Hereke factory therefore must have been after this date. When World War I came to end, the protection of the labor force and their honor against possible violation by militia force became major concern of the factory. The factory attracted some Turkish and Orthodox Greek militia forces having stocks of money. A waterfront location nearby the railway also put it in the beaten track. For Gingeras, the nationalism was not only the unique element that exacerbated the violence, the efforts of the empire to centralize its dominance in Anatolia also resulted in both separation and alliance of the different ethno-religious groups. The actors of the attacks to the factory were mostly coming from South Marmara. The culture of paramilitarism as a social cultural phenomenon was peculiar to South Marmara region. Yet paramilitarism is an important subtext within these themes of violence and identity. In 1918, the paramilitaries of Anesti Orthodox Greek group attacked the housing in the factory campus and extorted 430 lira and 8 lira gold from Huruş Ahmet Ağa. The mother of Huruş Ahmet Ağa, Feride, was wounded by knife. Correspondence between private treasury of Sultan and Hereke Commission on December 1918 showed there was a gendarme unit consisting of 12 soldiers to keep the workers and the station safe from possible attacks, and that reinforcement was required since some of the existing gendarmes has been sent into incidents in the surrounding areas, while others had deserted. Yet another attack from Albanians, correspondence between the Ottoman Anatolian Railway Company and Ottoman General Staff and Military Control Director of Izmir, Mr. Kobat, shows that Arnavut Aslan, an Albanian paramilitary from Balıkesir, worked for Ibrahim Ethem, who was a militia attorney and bureaucrat. He surrounded the factory in May 1990, demanding 10,000 Ottoman liras and retaining the directory of the factory that they were fire upon settlement if they could not get the money. The inhabitants were in state of atmosphere. The gendarme forces was reinforced. Some Ottoman battalions were sent into the area of Colonel Ali Pasha, the commander of General Jandarma, in order to capture the group. Indeed, in retrospect, the factory was attacked by the Arnavut Aslan group in 1980 when the money of the factory workers taken. After this, the workers, mainly guards, were armed by Gebze Administration Jandarma Station Command against possible attacks. The weapons distributed were 18 cartridges, 4 Russian rifles, 6 Martini rifles. However, these weapons stockpiled in the factory were later appropriated by British Regiment Command Unit deployed in the factory in September 1990. Meanwhile, the correspondence between Fahri Bey from Directorate of Private Treasury of the Sultan and Colonel Graves from British High Commission in August 1920 demonstrates that the National Turkish Bank, Milli Türkiye Bankası, provided a loan to Directorate of Imperial Treasury to operate the factory. However, the Directorate imposed restrictions on the production of broadcloth, fez, woolen and silk furnishing clothes and carpets in case of a visit of Turkish national forces. Yet it would be inappropriate to dismiss the industrious workforce of the factory, Fahri Bey noted, composed of Muslim, Orthodox Greek, Armenian, and Jewish male and female workers. Fahri Bey asked of the colonel that factory be well protected, that the flour and the meal sent from the directorate to the workers should be passed through the cordon of Greek and British soldiers, and that the officials in charge of bringing workers their wages, bringing the raw materials to the factory and taking the products back to Istanbul should be under guard. On April 1921, some Orthodox Greek refugees departed from the factory by boats after Greek commander and battalion left the factory for 1 month. So an agreement was made between Greek commander and the director of the factory that as the Greek commander defended the Muslim inhabitants of the meal, so the chastity, honor and comfort, ırz, namus ve rahatları of the Christians must be protected by the directorate of the factory. The commander warned the director unless the safe conditions for the Christians were provided by directorate, the area would be declared as a combat front line. cephe-i harp. The directorate of the factory guaranteed the protection of the chastity, honor of the remaining female and male Orthodox Greek and Armenian workers. However, the attacks went on. Greek torpedoes landed to 2 militia forces in Hereke, consisting of 30 people in May 1921. Even though there is no indication that refugees were the workers, their departure from Hereke was informed by the directorate of the factory to Gebze, district governor. So the Greek population left, Orthodox Greek population left. In order to understand the aftermath of remaining Christian and Jewish population, a well-studied of oral history is required. As some Orthodox Greek population was displaced in Hereke, Turkish refugees, mostly young people, began to be placed in and employed in the factory with philanthropic intentions, who were destitute, düçarı felaket olmuş. And in 1921, 5 female immigrants and refugees were sent to Hereke Imperial Factory as they wanted to work at the factory. They asked the directorate to protect them kindly and employ them appropriate jobs. The refugees were older than 16 and coming from Tekirdağ, Yemen, Mekke, Orhan Gazi, etc. As a matter of fact, in this period, Yusuf Agah Bey, the factory manager, was dismissed by the order of British Army. By the time the Third Turkish Army Corps headquarters were transferred from Izmir to Hereke on 15 October 1922, the factory had witnessed a great transformation over just 10 years and had almost homogenized. Philanthropic agencies helped this transformation through sheltering the needy, employment of the girls in the factory, and sheltering the destitute refugees. So a male child transforming into a part of modern national labor force. Not only disciplining well mechanized, but the organization of the labor force restructured the social paradigms. The tacit communication of the state with the children and youth in the industrial society crystallized in changing genre of products. National, their being sometimes armed against militia forces, sometimes make them work for them, and the onset of poverty and violence during those times must be crystallized into anxiety among the workers, and thereby children and youth. Violence, as Gingeres asserted, was instrumental in management of the emerging political, economic, and social web of state. The decade from 1912 to 1922 shows us children and youth at a plant site transforming into part of the modern national labor force through a blurring of boundaries between macropolitic tools and micro-ethnic structures. So how did the artistic production change? So pre-war years, the factory had a repertoire of Orientalist, Victorian, Western Anatolia, arts and crafts, and Iranian motifs. The artists of the chief draftsmanships were from Austria, like Aisha and Plan, the name of them, or local artists such as Yorgaki, an Orthodox Greek, or Thomas Efendi, an Armenian. The production of these more Oriental carpets at Hereke Factory coincides with Thomas Efendi's tenure and as a chief draftsman. And it was under him that this new style reached its apex in a self-confident style that was projected out of the world. The production of the prayer carpet was popular during World War I. The prayer rugs mostly produced by Hereke Factory was about mihrab, Two pillars, again here we are seeing two pillars spanning an arch, represents the mihrab itself. As Sumru Belgel-Prodi argues for the prayer rocks, mihrab, the arch gives the direction of the ritual worship. The candela in the hanging lamp, suspended from the arch, symbolizes the illumination of God. So the light of the lamp, God is the light of the heaven and earth. Allah's presence device is given with the light coming through the candela. We can see the light from gradually colorized nothings from green to black. The floral pattern at the bottom depicts the paradise garden. Here, the floral pattern. The arch carpet is for personal use, so which is called namazgan seccade. Meanwhile, the factory was affiliated to the Ministry of Finance, was transferred to Industry and Madinbark in 1925 after the proclamation of Turkish Republic in 1923. When the factory achieved its national workforce, the factory's artistic production was also replaced with products colonizing the actors of the emerging Turkish Republic. Among various Turkish artists, there were invited an Iranian artist, Hüseyin Tahirzadeh, who started to work as a carpet painter at Hereke Factory in 1926, who was an expert in testip, miniature, embroidery, and carpet patterns. In the image on the left, we see a testip by Hüseyin Tahirzadeh, where Mustafa Kemal Pasha at the center and surrounded by the angels, which are Iranian miniature style. A crescent holds the portrait of Mustafa Kemal Pasha. The testip was dated to 1923. On the bottom, it is written Gazi Büyük Mustafa Kemal Pasha, Great Mustafa Kemal Pasha. On the left and right, it is written Sulh, peace, and Zafer, victory. On the tapestry, not this time a prayer rug, but a tapestry at the center, mostly looks like a view by Tahirzadeh, which is a nakashai halı, like a special technique embroidery carpet. This time we are seeing Mustafa Kemal Pasha in the mihrab. However, remember the prayer rugs again, not with a lamp, but as a reflection of the light of the God. The mihrab gives a directionality of the users or believers, like his way is the right one. The image on the right is a tapestry with Mustafa Kemal Pasha depiction, included again with a pitch mihrab with a Turkish flag into Mustafa Kemal Pasha emerged as a reflection of the light of the God. So the manifestation of emerging Turkey and its actors crystallized on carpets between 1923 to 1927. Actually, this means the beginning of a new epoch. So, thank you.